Welcome to Wesley Impact. I'm Keith Garner. Do you feel like access to medicine should be equally available to all members of society? Thank you for being with us today. At Wesley Mission, we work with a wide range of people in need and provide a range of services to help fill those needs. We don't discriminate. Our doors are open to anyone in need and wherever we can be. But there are times where we recognise that the services we provide need to be updated, changed to be relevant to those to whom we try to help. One person who knows a little bit about that, the focus, is my guest today, Don Palmer. Don's had a long career in different realms. He's been a television producer, Christian minister and university lecturer, and is currently the CEO of the Malpa Project, which we'll talk about a little later. An initiative which began addressing issues among Australia's Indigenous people, primarily in rural, remote and outback areas, as you'd expect. I'm looking forward to that conversation with Don a little later. Deb Ezzy-Walton, Craig Gower and the band are going to sing King of My Heart, and I'll share some further thoughts from a practical words in James from the book of the New Testament. Now, one example of Wesley Mission starting a programme to meet a need was way back when one of my predecessors, Alan Walker, was involved in beginning the counselling service Lifeline. Today we operate Lifeline in Sydney and Sutherland offices, which are two call centres, and we've got a network of around 40 across Australia. Over the next 2 weeks, I'd like to look at this area of our work. We'll get an understanding of the origins of Lifeline and how Wesley Mission continues in that work today. And next week, we'll be hearing from one of our volunteers in that area. Let's take a look together.
Lifeline began as a work of Wesley Mission in 1963, when our superintendent, the Reverend Alan Walker, saw a change in popular culture. The social revolution of the 60s, driven by demands for greater individual freedom, led to increased isolation for many individuals. Changes to the social conventions which upheld our community meant some people now had nowhere to turn. 3 days after receiving a call from an anonymous person who gave the name of Roy, Alan was contacted by the police saying that Roy had taken his life. Determined not to let loneliness, isolation and anxiety to be the cause of other deaths, Alan called on church members, 150 volunteers and Wesley Mission staff and began Lifeline. Over 100 calls for help were answered on that first day, the first only 1 minute after the lines were opened. Lifeline was listed as an emergency helpline in the telephone directory and featured in Time magazine, which propelled the ministry onto an international platform. Today, Lifeline exists in 16 countries around the world. In Australia, there are 40 Lifeline call centres with 3,500 volunteers answering over 1 million calls each year on a centralised number, 13 11 14.
Wesley Mission looks after Lifeline Sydney and Sutherland. So we have one site in the Sydney CBD and we have another site out at Sylvania. So we have a lot of volunteers who come into Sydney City. We probably have about 200 and we probably have about another 85 volunteers out at the Sylvania site.
I've always had a heart for helping people and I thought, why not sign up to Lifeline? Basically anyone in need or anyone in crisis can reach out to Lifeline.
I've been a Lifeline volunteer for 10 years now. I started as a volunteer for Lifeline because I felt like I wanted to contribute back into society and I wanted to do some volunteering, and their training was excellent. People do feel lonely, and the more ways there are to communicate, I think the more lonely people feel. And that's why I think it's such an essential service. It is a crisis line, so there are times when people are in a crisis. They're feeling suicidal, they may have suicidal thoughts, and you're there for them, but it's also there for people that just want to be listened to.
To become a Lifeline crisis supporter, you can come from any age range or background. It doesn't really matter, because when you come on board, you will learn the skills to be on the phones. You will go through a nationally accredited training program, so you'll be equipped to handle whatever there is that comes on the phone. The way that society has developed places a greater need for people to connect with someone who will listen and to alleviate that sense of being alone, that sense of isolation. Lifeline really provides a backstop for people when doctors are not there, when psychologists are not there, when counsellors are not there. Lifeline is always there.
If you would like to learn more about Wesley Mission, visit wesleymission.org.au. You can find help in our community services, connect with our church and congregations, discover a volunteer role that suits you, stay up to date on the latest news and information, donate to support our work, and help make a positive difference in your community. You can also connect with us on social media and subscribe to receive the latest news and information about Wesley Mission directly into your inbox. Visit wesleymission.org.au.
Please don't hesitate to be in touch if you'd like to find out more about our work, or more importantly, perhaps, if we can be of help to you in any way. Our website and email are on the screen now. I've been looking forward to this conversation with our guest today, Don Palmer. Don is the founder and CEO of the Malpa Project. To tell us more about it, we welcome you, Don.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you, Keith.
I want to ask you what Malpa means and then what the project's about.
Yes, Malpa is a word that comes and is well known in the Western Desert, west of Alice Springs, amongst the Walpri and Pintabee people. And when I asked them what word should we use to call ourselves and what we're doing, they said, use the word Malpa. And Malpa is universally understood to mean friends on the journey. And by this they meant Indigenous and non-Indigenous people walking together.
That's a lovely thought. We often don't think in that way from the non-Indigenous world, do we? Tell us then what the project does and how long it's been going.
Yes, the heart of the project was to find a way that empowered Aboriginal people so they could take control of their own health destiny. And the idea is a mirror reflection of the traditional way of doing health, whereby the Ngangkari in the Western Desert, that is those with the health knowledge around medicines but also around mental health, would look for children as young as 4 sometimes, in our case children around about 10, kids who have got the right outlook on life, the right attitude and aptitude, who are alert to the needs of others and to themselves. And they start taking them aside and giving them the health knowledge, the clinical knowledge, as it were, but also mental health ability, so that they can hold their people together. So these kids grow up knowing that they have a special place, an important role in the life of their community, and they become in turn doctors. So they think of it as young doctors or child doctors. Mm-hmm. And
quite strange for us to even begin to imagine that, but there are 2 things about it that strike me. One is that it's not a case of flying in to do it from outside, which is often how we do things, but also it's one discerned from within the community.
Yeah, I think for many Aboriginal communities, they're just so fatigued by, well-meaning non-Indigenous people coming in with, I've got the answer for you.
Yes.
This was an answer that emerged from the people. When I asked them, why does nothing work? And they said it's because things aren't done our way. And then they explained what the traditional way was, worked for 60,000 years and produced fantastic health. So what we're doing is giving them the capacity to feel empowered, to take control of their own destiny. So we resource them, we walk alongside them, but it's theirs. They design it, they figure out what they think the important content is for their area, what their kids need to know.
And is this in a particular area that you're focused on, or is it spread across other areas?
Yes, well, we started initially in the town camps around Alice Springs, that very 4th world conditions that people live there, great pain and suffering. And we started there to see how it went. And then by word of mouth, it's moved into regional and rural areas in New South Wales, Northern Territory, ACT, Victoria and South Australia. And the thing that, one of the many things that excites me is that it has the same success everywhere it goes. And I think it's because people feel that it's theirs, that it emerges from their need and their sense of hope, and they see very quickly the results of it and have a renewed sense of pride and self-worth.
And how does the Christian faith inspire its values and the things that for you are important? How's that inspired you in this work?
I think, I mean, the religious values, the ones that were so important to me in my growing up and my maturation, are things that are sort of part of my DNA, and in a way they're not articulated, but they're expressed in what I do, and that is that like Jesus would do, he would sit alongside people and simply be with them. I think being is a really hard challenge for people. We always want to do, but to be with people and to have them articulate what their needs and hopes are, and then to see how we might bring some sense of support in that, or some enabling way of going forward, and for people to discover that they have the capacity to do things. For many Indigenous people, it's always been done to them or for them. And I think we're sort of saying, no, this comes from the core of who you are, from your spirituality, from your dignity and worth, and you can create things of real significance and social change.
Give us a size. You talked about the locations. I mean, how many people have been trained in this way? Or that sounds a bit imposing from outside, but you know what I mean. How many young people have been involved in this?
Well, what we do is there are 15 kids in each project, and they come together for 15 weeks, an hour and a half a week. We always have non-Indigenous children involved as well, and that's what the elders said they wanted. They said this has to be a learning thing, a respectful thing, and it's been very healing and reconciling for that. Currently there are just over 1,000 children who have been trained by their communities, and we currently have another 500 in training for the second half of this year. It's just been growing from 12 in the beginning and just been mushrooming, and because it resonates for people, and they get pride and results out of it that they can see.
I want you to stay around just till the end of the show, if you will, and come back a little bit later in the show. Now I wanted to welcome Deb Ezzy-Walton to sing King of My Heart.
Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. 'Cause you are good, good. Oh, 'cause you are good, good. Oh, 'cause you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in my waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. 'Cause you are good, good. Oh, 'cause you are good, you're good. Oh, 'cause you are good, good. Oh, 'cause you are good, good. Oh, you're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let
experience the Galilee and the towns and cities where Jesus was raised and called his home. Capernaum, Nazareth, Tabgha, Magdala, Caesarea Philippi, Bethsaida, Tiberias, and of course the Sea of Galilee all feature in this 6-part series as Keith Garner explains the first century context of biblical events.
Jesus was born during a time of change in the political and economic leadership of this region. Fishermen around a lakeside was really one of the big businesses. Why Jesus? Why didn't people ignore him? Why did they take him seriously? And what are the questions we should be asking today if we're going to take Jesus seriously?
The Man of Galilee is available now and comes with a study guide for leaders, small groups and individuals. For more, visit wesleymission.org.au.
The DVD is available for purchase from Wesley Mission, and the address is on the screen now. I'm sure you'll find it a fascinating walk through the Galilee region to understand the context of Jesus and how he delivered some of his most profound teachings. I'd like to continue now exploring from the book of James and really just picking 2 or 3 verses from chapter 3 and chapter 4. Firstly in James 3, then in James 4. Let me read from that passage. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds shown in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbour bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom that comes down from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. When you ask, you do not receive, because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he'll flee from you. Come near to God, and he'll come near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, you double-minded. Now, James is very practical. We've learned this from the very beginning. The moral emphasis that he calls from us as Christians is to get rid of all those things that get in the way, envy, selfish ambition, which in due course leads to disorder and division. God's wisdom is peaceable and gentle. James contends that all conflicts and desires come from within. In fact, James really gets onto something that is true in the Bible. It's the stuff inside that makes all the difference, good or bad. We should seek God's will and purpose. We're called to take sides with truth. I remember a friend of mine, David Shepherd, Bishop David Shepherd in the UK, who wrote a book called Bias to the Poor. Oh my goodness me, it caused trouble. We don't like to think about having biases, but we do have a bias as Christian people, and we're called to take sides with truth. The two sides are very much those sides that are reflected in the world around us and its rewards, or God's way of truth. Friendship with God, I think, means being an enemy of what's wrong. It means standing with those who are hurt or disenfranchised, by those people who are damaged, and by those values that we know are real and very different than those things. We can't seek to be double-minded as Christians. I like that sense that James brings out about being double-minded. You can't think it in two ways. Verse 13 in the passage talks about this wisdom. It says, who is wise? It's a matter of choice. We have choices in life to make. We're called all throughout our lives to make choices. Those choices are not, oh, well, what am I going to have for my lunch today, or what am I not going to have? They're very serious choices about values, about people, and about the things that really make a difference. And then in verse 17, in the same passage, we're told that wisdom comes from God. It's identical really to the Beatitudes. I like the Beatitudes when we do our our exploration in the film about the Galilee, we focus a lot on the Beatitudes, the way we should live, the values that should control our lives. And we must submit our lives to God. I think there's some negative stuff in the Christian tradition about this word submit, but not here. Certainly not here. We must submit our lives to God. We must decide what the priorities are going to be in our lives as we draw near to God. So he comes near to us. He draws close to us. That's the truth in verse 8 that we find together here. Come near to God in that sense. You know, I think that what we find in James when he gets to this point, he's talked all about those things like the tongue and all about works and how works should really reflect our discipleship. Here he's talking about the inner life, but not in a pious a way that is rejecting of people, but saying this inner life can make such a difference to the way we live our lives outwardly, day by day. As we come near to God, so he comes near to us and guides the way that we perceive living our lives. So submitting our lives to God becomes the practical reality, day by day, of how we live. That we don't become a people who are embracing those values, those ways that are negative, but rather the very positive way, the way of Christ. James has often been misunderstood by people. I think Martin Luther got it wrong too about James, actually. He called it an epistle of straw. You could say it's really powerful stuff because it really gets into the business of this relationship between our faith, what we believe is true about Jesus Christ, our trust in God, and our works, those things that we do day by day. Theodore Roosevelt summed up the danger of selfishness in the American context when he said this: "The things that will destroy America are peace at any price, prosperity at any cost, safety first instead of duty first, and the love of soft living and the getting rich quick theory of life." You know, we're all different people, but I think there's a truth in some of that we need to really take seriously what it means to embrace the good news of the gospel in our own lives, day by day.
If you would like to contact Keith and find out more about today's program, write to us at Wesley Mission, Post Office Box A 5555, Sydney South 1235, or you can send us an email to impacttv@wesleymission.org.au. On our website, you can catch up on past episodes of Wesley Impact, find out more about our work, read online magazines and articles, and connect with us on social media. You can also connect through Keith's blog and stay up to date on all the latest news and information from Wesley Mission, wesleymission.org.au.
Thank you once again for sharing with us today. It's always a pleasure to spend time together. Now, my guest earlier in the programme was the founder of the Malpa Project, working with Indigenous communities around Australia, encouraging young people to be, if you like, the health ambassadors. In this work he started, it emerged out of need. Now, Dom, before we finish up, if someone's listening to our conversation, as they will be today, and they say, this is something I'd like to belong to, contribute to, what would they do?
Yes, there's a couple of things they can do. Firstly, it needs to be in the context of knowing that what happens in our projects is very localised. All the people involved are local people, so we don't have a sort of a fly-in, fly-out mentality. But what we would do if people got in touch with me, and they can find the details on our website, that's malpa, malpa.org.au, where there are videos and various good news stories and things there. If they get in touch with me, then what I would do is connect them with the project, but the project managers would come and sit down with them. And if the chemistry's right, and if the people in the project felt, well, these people would be very welcome, then they take that initiative. They take ownership and responsibility for what happens and where it goes. It's not localised in me.
Then I really want to wish you well as the work continues and grows, and we'll discover again it takes on new clothes, new ideas as it moves along. You can watch past episodes of Wesley Impact on the Wesley Mission website. Write to me with any questions about the Christian faith or in life in general. Thank you once again for your joining us on the Wesley Impact TV. It's always a delight to share with you. We have all kinds of different guests, different music, and things that inform us about what it means to be disciples of Jesus Christ today. God bless bless you. Look forward to the same time wherever you are next week. God bless you.
Wesley Mission answers over 39,000 calls each year through Lifeline Sydney and Sutherland. To find out more, visit wesleymission.org.au.